helpful at this point to reopen and reacquaint yourself with the subject outline for this subject. So go into the Getting Started folder and find the subject outline and pull up the subject outline, and it's around page 20, I believe, where you're going to get the assessment task description. So reread the assessment task description and the criteria. Do be aware that this is worth 30%. So this is in addition to the 5% per blog post that you could have made up 10% of your participation mark. Now your portfolio is worth up to 30% of your marks. So one of the first things to notice, and some people have said they found somewhere on the subject outline that it says that your blog should be 500 words. They should actually be 400 words. So thank you for finding that, but that's a typo. They should be 400 words text, and each blog then should have its own list of references not included in the word count, identifying the academic sources consulted and cited in your blog post, as well as the image that you used. So your in-text citations and your quotes are part of those 400 words, but your reference list isn't. So this needs to be ideally your first blog, which was on power, and one more on one other key concept. So this week, week 8, is the last key concept, and we're looking at Exchange. And you have by Friday midnight to post on Exchange this week. But I wanted to draw your attention as well to that box in the subject outline that we've put a few other places in this subject, which is the required elements of your blog. And I've highlighted some of these areas here because they're things I've noticed that online, in online posts might need a little bit more work. So for instance, you need to have at least one formal reference to the week's lecture and at least one formal reference to the academic set reading for each week's topic, for that week's topic. So it's fine if you've also referenced the blog, but the blog was for a general educated reader, not for a scholarly reader. And so we do want to make sure that you are acquainting yourself with the scholarship of this subject, and this is an academic blog. One of the reasons that we have you do these blogs is to build the micro skills that you need to be able to execute the assessment later on in the subject, the 40% assessment that is the case study essay. So part of that is learning how to interact with your set readings and use scholarship, in particular in the class's set reading, to define your key concept. So you need to show substantive engagement with the lecture that's helped your conceptual understanding of the key concept and the ways in which you're dialoguing with the scholarship about the key concept as assigned in your key reading, your assigned scholarly reading that week. As I said, it's fine if you reference the blog, but you also need to reference the scholarly academic reading that week. Each week, if you reacquaint yourself with the subject outline, there is an academic reading and blog. So we want you to use the academic reading in ways that you're establishing some sort of scholarly dialogue with a scholar who's talked about that key concept, or you're using that scholar's definition of the key concept. Perhaps you might be augmenting it with some other scholarship or with some further thoughts of your own. Or perhaps you might actually be debating it or discrediting it or saying that you don't think it's relevant anymore for whatever reason. But this is about engaging with a networked conversation, a scholarly conversation with the scholarship in this field. Now, some of you have gone off and found other academic articles, and that's wonderful and fine, and I'm glad that you're exercising your skills in research. But that does not fulfill this aspect of the assessment criteria. You do need to reference the lecture, and you do need to reference the set reading in ways that you're engaging with in some substantive way. So this is hard. It's hard to do all that within the 400 words. Now, most academic assignments will give you the leeway of 10% more or less. So we'll take up to 450 words or 360 words at the minimum. It is hard to say something that's substantial within only 400 to 450 words, plus your references. And that's where the heart of the difficulty of this task is. It can seem deceptively simple. It's just a couple paragraphs. But trying to do all of these things and do them well within a couple paragraphs does take a lot of work. And this is part of the skill of planning, refining, polishing, that will also come in handy when it comes to your longer assignments. So do ensure that you've reacquainted yourself with the subject outline and that you follow the directions. This week-by-week blog activities at a glance should also be reread to give you a sense of what your blog's should have. Unless you've arranged otherwise with me, your first blog should discuss the key concept of power, because that will also come up in your case study assignment. And the second blog would be one of the other weekly key concepts and that week's lecture and that week's readings. And that's because your case study essay will also allow you to apply one other key concept to your analysis of a real-life global network. So do have a look at the LibGuide. I'll put a link to that again in the assessment folder, because there is a very simple blog exemplar in it. But one of the things that's useful in looking at that blog exemplar is even just the referencing in the APA format that you need to have in your reference list, and even just the way that they've credited the image and formatted a few things. I just always find it really useful to have a visual example. I'm very much a visual thinker. And so the LibGuide's got lots of treasures in it, and it's time to reacquaint yourself with that, as well as the pointers that it gives on APA referencing in other sections of that LibGuide. Another thing that we expect you to do in this subject is to copy and paste the cover sheet. The cover sheet for each assessment can be found on the last page, the final page of the subject outline. And we need you to append it to the first page of your blog portfolio. I've also given you a copy of it for download in the assessment folder. So I just need you to work out how to copy and paste that into the first page of your document. Your document, your blog portfolio should be one singular Word doc or docx, not a PDF and not multiple files. I don't want to have separate assessment cover sheets from separate blog 1, separate blog 2. There's only an opportunity for you to deposit in the Learn JCU Dropbox for this subject one item, and that is one document that has all of these three elements: your cover sheet plus blog 1 and blog 2. The reason I want it as a doc or a docx rather than a PDF is because I need to be able to interact with it. So I'll use track changes to make comments on it, to be able to insert my marking criteria and my feedback to you. And also it's more helpful for me in terms of testing out the hyperlinks as well. It's more interactive form. I do need you to sign the cover sheet, but you don't need to work out how to give an electronic signature or a handwritten signature in an electronic form. Simply type your name or your initials and date it, and that should be fine. So as I said, please do not deposit multiple items into the Dropbox, just one document that has all three elements: your cover sheet, blog 1, and blog 2. So please be aware that unless you submit your blog portfolio this way, you will not be credited on this assessment, which is a large piece of assessment worth up to 30%. And you'll need to submit all items of assessment in order to pass this subject. So you do need to submit your blog portfolio in order to pass this subject. The cover sheet looks like this. You need to put in your name and your student number, the assessment type, so just say blog portfolio, the due date the 20th September, tutor name, Roger if you're in Cairns, otherwise it's me, and you can just put Victoria, and the word count per blog. So just put blog 1, 450 words. That does not include your reference list. Blog 2, 410 words, does not include your reference list. You sign it and you date it. And you can see that it's asking that you have fulfilled the criteria of the learning, teaching, assessment criteria, and the student academic misconduct requirements are also listed there if you want to look that up. Your assignment will be checked and scanned for plagiarism. So this is about just student integrity. So here's an example of what your portfolio might look like. This person has used single spacing to fit them basically on one page each. I'm fine with single spacing or double spacing for this assignment. And they've given me their lovely cover sheet here. The reason this is so important is because when I'm downloading over 100 assignments to mark over the lecture recess, as I will be in this case, whilst Learn JCU does give you a digital stamp for your assignment, I am going to be downloading them all into one folder and marking them that way rather than marking them on Learn JCU. So I can very easily lose track of whose assessment is whose if you don't actually have your identifying details on that. And you can see here that this person has just submitted the 2 blogs. They've given their image credits under it, and they've also given the reference list for each blog under each one, with active hyperlinks for me to check. And that's about the size of what it should look like in the end. It should be around 4 pages, or a little bit less than that even, if that's what your submitting single-spaced, and of course more than that if it's double-spaced. But I do have a very good sense of how many words is, about 400 words. So just a word of warning that if it's under that or over that, I will be double checking your word count, and that is a significant part of your criteria. So what can you edit, polish, and change between now and when your blog portfolio is due on the 20th of September? The short answer is almost anything. And the longer answer is it's helpful to focus on the assessment criteria. So look at page 22 and 23 and 24 of your subject outline to see how I will be marking you. Some pro tips then is we want some substantive engagement with something from the lecture, not just a nominal reference to the lecture. And it shows that you've watched, listened, and reflected on the ways that we've thought about that key concept that week, and applied conceptual understanding from the lecture for that week's key concept. And I also want to see some sort of substantive engagement with the weekly set reading, ideally in ways that help you define or discuss the key concept. Again, not tokenistic. Part of this assignment, as I said before, is about accountability and making sure that you have been engaging. If you've been engaging deeply with this subject, that will be inherently reflected in your blog and the quality of blog that you produce. We're also looking for proper integration of referenced ideas. So make sure that you unpack your quotes. Don't just parachute something in and expect that it speaks for itself. And you can Google, how to avoid parachute quotes, and you'll get some Grammarly and other web pages that can explain to you how to integrate a quote or a paraphrase, for example, into your argument if you're unfamiliar with that or unsure. You also want to work on editing for conciseness, word choice, grammar, punctuation, and of course fitting to the word count. And if you're really not sure of the quality of your writing, it's highly, highly recommended that you take advantage of the hive mind and the network that is your BA 1002 cohort and find someone to exchange your pieces with and to get some critically constructive feedback from. I believe in the past sessions this week, some of you will be doing that. And finally, do remember to at least have a good effort at attempting to comply with the APA referencing format in 6 or 7. I don't care which one you do, APA version 6 or 7, so long as you're consistent. And there's some tips on that in the LibGuide as well. Don't turn yourself in knots trying to make sure that you've got the perfection of APA. I'm not going to turn myself in knots to make sure that you've got it. But I do want to see that you have demonstrated a propensity to understand the key components of APA style. And part of the BA core subjects is to set you up for success in all of your other subjects in your degree. We know that different subjects will use different styles, but we do feel like it is part of our duty of care to make sure that we're sending you into other subjects with a sense of at least the level of attentiveness that you are expected to apply to any referencing style in any subject. So finally, again, your subject outline will have your assessment criteria, and I've just highlighted a few things here to show you some things that I really am looking for. I want to see an expert level of engagement with and understanding of the subject key concept as scholars and theorists have engaged with it. Not all of them, choose one or two to dialogue with. And I want to see substantive understanding and engagement with the reading and the lecture and application of the reading and the lecture to something about digital life and networks. I want to see that your ideas are well supported with clear and succinct observations, giving evidence of things and applying your class reading and lectures to that. I want to see well-structured sentences and paragraphs, perfect grammar. I want to see that your sources are used, that is your class readings and your lectures, and perhaps other things that are used in ways that smoothly integrate and incorporate your ideas and observations. And finally, I want to see, that writing quality, that referencing, and some good habits in terms of presentation of assignment. So that's all from me. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with myself or with Haley or with Evelyn, depending on who your past leader is, or with our student support officers, Sarah Branford or Anita Sullivan. Lots of us here to support you, and we want to make sure that this isn't a hurdle, but something that really sets you up for success for the rest of the subject. So good luck, and don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any questions.